Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity here, doing in a sort of impromptu last minute kind of thing live stream. Joined here by my sister Alyssa. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark, for doing this. I just wanted to talk, a little bit about the first half of the season and what to expect in the second half of the season. So, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming. So we are going to be talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 3. The first 7 episodes have aired as of this recording. So yeah, just going to give our thoughts on the season thus far. It's pretty much halfway through, I guess. And that will allow us to maybe talk about some theories about how the season's going to end or what we expect to happen with the season going forward. But first, let's start with overall thoughts on the season thus far. And Alyssa, I'll turn to you. What do you think of this season so far?
I'm really enjoying this season so far. It depends on what they do in the second half, and we'll talk about that and whether or not this is the season that really puts Discovery up to the next level. I think there's potential for that so far, like season 3 of Next Generation, season 3 of Deep Space Nine, at least in yours and mine opinion. I guess not everybody saw season 3 same way that we did, but you and I agree with that on Deep Space Nine. So I think that there's real potential for this to be a next level season. And when we talk later about theories, there's one theory I really think will not make it a next level season. So, but what I'm really enjoying about it is that it just really, I hate to say it, but it feels more like Star Trek to me. And also, I love the new setting that they're in. I've always thought they should have always been in the future. Like, I remember when I first heard about Star Trek Discovery and they were like, oh, it's going to be 10 years before TOS. And like, why? That is the dumbest time period to set a show. And I remember kind of getting in a little bit of a disagreement with you, not on air, but I think on through email. Like, you were like, no, they could probably do something with that. And I'm like, I predicted that what would happen is what happened, was that they would be constantly running up against canon. Like, they're just putting themselves in this tiny little box with no maneuverability. But now, the sky is wide open. I'm loving that we can revisit old worlds anew. Like this week, we visited a Vulcan, which is now called Navarre, and the Vulcans have been done to death, especially in Enterprise. But now we can get a fresh look at them. And earlier, we got a fresh look on Earth, and then Trill, of all places. They could even bring in the Klingons and give a fresh look to them. I've stated many times I'm sick of the Klingons, but they could. So it opens up whole new worlds. They have so much more maneuverability now. With the storytelling. So I think it always should have been set in this time period, or at least sometime in the future of Voyager. I didn't necessarily need it to be this far in the future. But I'm loving that it's in this time period, and it feels more like Star Trek to me because I'm finally starting to get a sense of the crew being together as a crew, whereas in the first 2 seasons, they tried to force feed that, but it was kind of not earned. Where, especially in the episode with the dinner, I'm starting to feel more like this is a crew, like the Next Generation crew was the Enterprise D crew was a crew, the Voyager crew was a crew. Even the nothing guys, like the token Asian guy and the token black guy whose name's, I think one of them's named Bryce or something. I don't really need them to actually be fleshed out more. I don't care if they are or not. At this point, it's almost too late. But as long as it feels like they are all a crew together, and I'm getting more of a sense of that, which makes me feel more like Star Trek. And also, being in the future, you're able to really call out to all the other shows besides just TOS. And they're really putting themselves in the greater Star Trek universe in a natural, organic way. I feel like they're not force feeding it in most cases. By my count, they've referenced every this season. I don't know if they've re-referenced TOS other than Spock, but they did TOS to death the first 2 seasons. But this season they've referenced every other show except for, I haven't caught any Lower Decks references yet. but other waiting for the Boimler and Mariner references to drop.
Did they reference Enterprise?
Oh yeah, Temporal Cold War is a big part of it.
Oh, of course, yeah.
The Temporal Cold War.
Yeah, of course.
So like. In the case of Enterprise, like they had to, like, it would have kind of been an outrage if they didn't reference it because, like,
yes.
And then, like, in this episode, the most recent episode, they did a heavy TNG reference to the unification, and it was a natural part of the story. And then some of the Deep Space Nine references have been kind of like Easter eggs, like the USS Nog, like they didn't go like, oh, we're gonna go on the USS Nog. That was named after the first Ferengi captain. Like they could have really laid.
I thought the whole Trill thing was like a Deep Space Nine reference.
Yeah, the Deep Space that's also a Deep Space Nine reference. But like they have a Trill character, so it like felt nothing to me felt like forced.
Yes.
So it felt natural and organic. Whereas a lot of times the TOS references in the first 2 seasons were.
Oh my God, they were horrendous. Like I forgot about that. Like I guess I forgot the way the first. It's been a while since I've seen the first 2 seasons. The way they used to go, like they're not really doing it anymore, and I kind of just didn't even notice because they shouldn't.
Yeah. But they've now incorporated every single Star Trek show, even Picard. Into it, and it feels natural and organic, and it feels it's making it feel more like they're now a part of the greater Star Trek universe. So just feeling more Star Trek-y to me. So I'm enjoying it overall. But we'll talk about where it could go wrong or where it could go right a little bit later.
Well, I don't know. I gotta be honest. I think my interest in the season is waning a bit, and I think part of that might just be your typical mid-season dip because pretty much every show I know of, even the ones I love, will have it in the mid-season. We'll get a bit into the fillery, kind of not as interesting stuff. Like it starts off strong and ends strong in the middle, kind of dips a bit. I think that's typical of a lot of shows. So I guess I might just be feeling that a bit right now, but I'm starting to feel like it's meandering a bit. Like the first couple episodes felt like they had a very strong purpose and direction. And I mean, there's still the thing about the burn, trying to figure out what's the deal with the burn, but it doesn't seem as like focused as it was at the start, or maybe that's just me.
Well, this whole episode was about figuring out the burn, the latest one.
Yeah, I know that's still the thing, but I don't know. It seems like there was more. Like, I don't know, because I talked in my earlier reviews how I loved the pace, but now I'm starting to not like it as much. I don't know.
I agreed with you. I would agree with that on the previous 2 episodes, but this episode, I think I liked it more than you, the most recent one.
Okay.
I do agree with you what you said in your review about the melodrama. That's still an issue.
Yeah.
Although you didn't mention the melodrama in episode 5, and to me that was the worst. Like when
which was episode 5?
I think it was 5. The one with the Barzans, was that 5?
Oh yeah.
Where she went up to that Barzan dude who was like trying to kill them or whatever, like trying to protect his family, and she's like, "But you must help us." And he's like, "Yeah, okay." And I'm like, "No, come on!" And then how she said goodbye to that. I like Nan, but she's like hardly been on the show. And like, "Oh God, I miss you. Oh, Michael, you're so." And I'm like, it was a little melodramatic. And then this past episode. Definitely a little too much of the melodrama and with the mom and all of that. So the melodrama is a little much, but I loved that they followed up with not only with unification, but it also kind of gives you a new perspective on Star Trek Picard, because now you know, because that focuses heavily on the Romulans, and you know where the Romulans are headed now, even though it's hundreds of years in the
It's
future.
kind of funny. Like I kind of feel like this show is really, because now it's set like 1,000 years in the future. It's really like setting canon so that anything that wants to take place before it's like Picard and stuff in that time era
Yeah,
will now have to. We now know where it's eventually going to lead, which to
but
me, I don't know. I just had the slight feeling of it. Maybe it spoils it a bit, but not
well,
entirely
but
because
there's still like how
yeah.
was it 700-800 years between Picard and this?
Yeah.
So
I
there's
mean, sure. Yeah. I mean, because I can still watch Enterprise, you can still watch the original series. And like you were talking before about setting a show in like the original series time period and how we had a sort of disagreement about that. Because I still say you could do, there is a way to do that. And hopefully that's going to be Strange New Worlds.
yeah,
Like everyone's looking forward to that, and I think there's a way that that show could be awesome, even though it's set. You know, we already know what happens to Pike and Spock and all that, and they're bringing in too many original series characters like Chekhov and Kirk and all that, which I wish they wouldn't, but whatever. But I think there's still a way to do that. That's could keep it fresh and interesting. But what they wanted to do with Discovery, it shouldn't have been set in that time period.
yeah,
What they want to do with like a spore drive and all this mirror universe and all this stuff, which is really bumping up against canon. They should
yeah,
have just set the show in the future to begin with. And so there's part of me that does feel like this is an obvious like behind the scenes fix, because none of the most of the people who were involved with the show and its creation aren't really around anymore. So it seems like it was inherited mostly by people who came in afterwards to be like, all right, we need to fix this. How can we fix this? Let's get it out of this time frame because it shouldn't have been there in the first place.
yeah.
And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but that's just kind of, it feels maybe a bit hodgepodge, just a little bit
Yeah.
like yeah, but but again, this is only like very very slight complaints. Overall, I am loving this season. um but I don't know, because here's the thing about Discovery: the first two seasons, it seems like I like them a lot more when I first watched them. When I go back and rewatch them, when I have time to sit with it, I seem to not like it as much.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's going to be the case with this season as well. That's always in the back of my mind. It's like maybe I just like it a lot right now, but when I go back and watch it, but I don't know. I do definitely see an improvement from the first two seasons, at least thus far. But again, the melodrama is still an issue. Like they
Yeah.
haven't. That's still they haven't resolved that one.
Yeah, I mean, if they resolve some of their other issues, which we'll talk about, and there's no guarantee that they will because we got 6 episodes left, then I think that the melodrama is something they can work on in the 4th season, hopefully, which apparently they started filming even before season 3 started airing. So they're already filming the 4th season.
Oh, they're already filming it. Oh,
Yeah,
I
I heard they were filming it like before season 3 even premiered. I heard that
like I knew it was renewed, but I didn't know they were already.
yeah,
Filming
no,
it.
they started. I remember reading that like a couple weeks before the first season 3 episode aired that they were starting production of season 4. So,
Right. Yeah.
so
That's
it's
pretty interesting.
so I don't know. I don't know if they would like fix the melodrama, but that's the one thing. But we'll see how the other episodes go. There could be other issues too, and we'll get into that in a couple minutes. But
Yeah, and the whole, since you mentioned Non, or what's her name? That's her name.
I
Non.
think it was none. I think so.
Yeah. Since you mentioned her, it does seem like they kind of changed their minds on that one, because why even take her into the future with them? Why didn't she just stay behind in the
Yeah.
Enterprise so she could have that yum yum line in the finale?
And maybe that's why they changed their mind, because they got a lot of pushback from the Yum Yum. They're like, well,
Yeah, it does seem like they changed direction and the real in season 3. Like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have brought her here. Let's write her off the show. But at least they didn't kill her, because that leaves it open for her to return for like guest appearances and whatnot.
yeah,
But yeah, it is interesting. But here's a thought I would have, and this is something someone brought up. As a lot of people complain about newer Star Trek in general being too much like Star Wars, and someone has brought up like plot wise is very similar to like the original Star Wars trilogy because it's set like in a time of disarray after like all the heroes like this once great empire whatever is falling apart and is falling to lawlessness. You got bounty hunters and whatnot, and I myself really harped on the first episode of the character book and how Han Solo like he is
Yeah.
and how they're setting this up. And I kind of see their point, actually. I kind of feel like they might have been like, oh, let's set up a situation that's more like Star Wars. But I guess there's like no evil empire equivalent, though. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like Star Wars doesn't, I don't know, isn't exclusive in that. I think it's just a common type of story that's just out there generally. And like,
Well, it's combined by the fact that the aesthetics look a lot like Star Wars. Now.
yeah, I don't know. I hear that, but I don't notice that. Like, it doesn't.
You don't?
Yeah.
I definitely felt that in especially the first episode.
Yeah. Yeah, the first episode I could really see that. But other than that, like, I don't know.
But I mean, that's what I liked about this past episode, though, that it felt more like Star Trek. That it was them, it was a diplomatic talking it over kind of thing, which I thought the melodrama kind of stepped on and ruined it a bit.
Yeah.
But other episodes too, like the one that went to Trill, felt very Star Trek like to me as well. It seems like the stuff they do with Book, that's when they get into the more Star Wars stuff, which is why I'm a bit iffy on that character. But it depends on where they take him. Like they can still do good things with him. Like I don't hate him, and I think they could still take him in a good direction.
Yeah, it depends on what they do with it. I think it could end up being, a nice, refreshing to have a different kind of character in with the regular Federation. And even though Michael Burnham does get a little melodramatic, I like the concept of her struggling with where she belongs now and having changed, but still having, this just really being dedicated and committed to Starfleet and the Federation, but then also having something else pulling her. I like that concept. I don't know if especially this last episode, if I always like the execution of it.
I think this last episode was way too on the nose about it.
Yeah.
It was way too in your face. Hey, she's having, which I thought it would have been a better sort of a behind the scenes thing. So
yeah, totally.
I think this past episode kind of represents my feelings of Discovery throughout, particularly season 2, where there's so many things about it I love, and there's other things about it I just really don't like, and it seems like warring,
Yeah.
So Scooter St. William in the chat, do you like this 32nd century comm badges? I do. I like them. I think they make total sense because they're in the 32nd fucking century. They should have comm badges that do everything. And it's kind of a nice progression because the original series comm badges did nothing. They just looked nice. And then 24th century TNG times they're communicators, but now you jump 1,000 years and they do fucking tricorders and everything. And so for me, that makes perfect sense.
And now you're also talking about the aesthetics of it because it's a different symbol now than it was, which makes sense too, that they would finally change their symbol after 800, 900 years. So yeah.
I didn't have a problem with the aesthetics of it.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people complaining about the retrofitting of Discovery and be like, "Oh, this is so stupid, and the cells aren't connected by anything, and blah 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 blah." I don't know. Who cares? I don't care. I think it's fine. It all makes sense to me.
I thought you said in one of your reviews, like it makes sense that they would do that because that's how
I agree.
Like, why wouldn't they?
Yes.
Upgrade Discovery. Why wouldn't they? Yeah. I did want to address something somebody wrote in the chat a little while. Where did I see that? I thought somebody wrote something about why isn't the Spore Drive a bigger deal at Starfleet headquarters? Cardinal Doomsday asked. Because I did want to address that because I think I don't know. I thought it was sufficiently a big deal. Like, I mean, I don't know that they necessarily would even want Discovery in their fleet if they didn't have the spore drive. So
Yeah.
and he's
I
kind
don't,
of yeah.
and they said at that meeting that they're trying to sort of keep it under wraps a bit.
Yeah.
Because it's a huge like target. It's a huge advanced thing that a lot of people would want to steal or fight them for. So it makes sense that they keep it between like the captains and admirals and whatnot.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's going to come into play at some point where it gets leaked out to somebody.
And also, I wonder if they're looking at like duplicating it and recreating it for other ships.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that they're from like 900 years in the past, but they have this advanced technology that nobody else has.
Yeah, I mean, I think that only makes sense because of the burn, because they had seemed to be regressed in some.
I know, but it's not like they thought of the spore drive in the 900 years in between. Like,
well, that's because they had the judge from The Simpsons come and decree that nothing ever happened. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep railing on that every time. I thought that was the dumbest thing ever.
No,
it does seem inconsistent with this episode where everyone.
I agree.
Michael Burnham was like, I thought they erased her from the
that was the first thing I thought too. I think they were like, oh shit, we shouldn't have done that. Let's just pretend. Maybe only on Vulcan do they know about her, Michael Burnham, not in Starfleet. So there's no Starfleet records, and Spock would never mention her on when he's in the original series or the Star Trek movies. He doesn't mention his sister because he's keeping it under wraps, but he's secretly telling the Vulcans. So the Vulcan.
So Cardinal Doom says, I wonder how they're able to understand each other after 950 years. Well, Universal Translator, duh.
That is the answer to everything.
Everything.
That is the Universal Translator is, which I noticed. I recently watched the animated series, and I noticed there was an episode in that where the Universal Translator wasn't that yet. I think that might have come in Next Generation where they decided the Universal Translator was. It just automatically translates everything.
Well, sure, it's a cop-out, Colonel Doomsday, but it's the same cop-out Star Trek has been doing since its creation. So. I think it's actually arguably not as bad as the original series where they go to the strange alien worlds, they meet them for the first time, and they all speak perfect English with no problem.
Yeah, totally agree. And then how come the Universal Translator just doesn't work sometimes when they speak like Klingon to each other?
I know! There's someone in particular I know who would really harp on that every time I watched Star Trek with them. They'd be when someone ever spoke Klingon or any other language, like, oh, the Universal Translator broke.
Yeah, totally.
But, all right, so let's get into some theories about what caused the burn. What is the deal? So you were talking about one theory in particular you desperately hope is not the case and you think would ruin the show. Is that correct?
Not ruin the show necessarily, but it would be disappointing. It would communicate to me that the show has not really gotten any better. That it's not any better than it was in seasons 1 or 2, and possibly worse. And basically that's not any specific theory, but any theory in which Michael Burnham is directly responsible for the burn would maybe not ruin the show, but it would show me that they've learned nothing, that they still need Michael Burnham to be the center of the universe and everything has to be caused by Michael Burnham. And I've even heard like, oh, it's called The Burn. Michael Burnham, The Burn. And so like, I've heard theories where like, I don't know, she's traveling through with the Red Angel suit and accidentally stops off at 100 years earlier and something happens and she didn't realize it. No, like I don't want it to have anything to do with Michael Burnham. They already did that in the first 2 seasons, especially season 2. I was against Michael Burnham being the Red Angel, if you recall. I didn't want that to happen. We don't need Michael Burnham to be the center of the universe for everything.
All right. Wait, correct me if I'm wrong though, but if I recall correctly, when they did reveal Burnham was the Red Angel, you seemed to be okay with it though.
Yeah, I wasn't as upset with it as I thought I would be. I would have still preferred they did something different, but I made my peace with it. Is probably the way to put it. But in this case, I am gonna be. It's gonna really bug the crap out of me if this is Michael Burnham related again. Michael Burnham doesn't have to cause everything. She doesn't have to be the center of the universe. I would find it much more interesting if it's any theory where it's caused by something else, like some other root cause that's going to now lead them into face some new enemy or face some new problem that's ongoing. I mean, the doors are wide open for what the enemy could be. It could be a new one. I would rather be a new one than it be the Klingons or something, or the Borg. The Borg caused the Borg. Like, I don't want to.
God. I didn't even think about the Borg if we're going to see them in the 32nd century.
Yeah, and well, same with the Klingons. Like, I kind of think they've overdone the Borg a bit, but I think that if they were able to do a fresh look at them, fine. But I would rather them not be involved with the burn either. But the number one, like, I would prefer that over Michael Burnham calls the burn in some way. Like, please, let's just not have it in anything to do with Michael Burnham. That if they do that, then I would. What?
No, go ahead.
I would feel like the show has not gotten better. It's learned nothing. They're repeating the same mistakes every single season. That they've not advanced, where they can't think outside of their little Michael Burnham box where everything has to revolve around Michael Burnham.
Yeah, and also Colonel Doomsday points out that neither should it be Michael Burnham's mother or father.
Right. Yeah, it ended up being Michael Burnham's father traveled into the.
Oh my God! Yeah, that would fucking piss me off.
I think that would be even worse, actually. If it was Michael Burnham's father somehow. Oh, he secretly traveled into the future too, and he caused the burn. Like, no. So yeah, nothing. Nobody. No relatives. Not her long lost secret brother who's other than Spock, or no relatives.
Yeah, nothing related to Burnham whatsoever.
Nobody that has
absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the burn.
Yeah. It might be interesting if they found a way to tie it in with the AIs and Picard. I mean, I don't know.
I was thinking that too, actually.
Yeah, that might be, if they could do it the right way, that could potentially be interesting. I don't know. Any theory where I feel like if it's setting up for, the next big thing that they're going to have to face, like going into season 4, like whether it's an enemy or a particular problem or both, that I would prefer. And if they tie it into Picard and they do it well, I think that could be good. But not Burnham. And then after Burnham, like the next, my next least favorite theory would be, and I haven't heard anyone propose this theory, but like that the Borg somehow did it, or even the Klingons, honestly, any like old hat thing, like just let's do something different.
Yeah, I thought it would be cool if it was the Dominion, but I doubt that.
The Dominion would be that's different because the Dominion.
Because they were only exploring Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, like only in Deep Space Nine. Yeah, if it happened to be the shapeshifters or the changeling, somehow,
But I doubt it though. It probably would be a new thing, which I'd be fine with. But speaking of the Borg, I recall there's that popular theory in season 2 that the Borg was control was Borg. I've actually heard several YouTubers who were very upset and thought it was a very poor decision to not have them be the Borg. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. That would have been terrible if control was the Borg. I think that would have been a billion times worse. And they're like, oh, they're so implying it's the Borg. I'm like, no, they're not. That's just the fans extrapolating and making up theories. The show itself never implied it was the Borg.
Yeah, I agree. They never implied it was the Borg.
Colonel Doomsday says Admiral Vance is a changeling. Yes. I don't know about that.
Martok is the change. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about that either. But yeah, I don't see them doing that with the changelings, but I think it could potentially be interesting if they folded the Dominion into this.
Yeah.
I think more likely than not, it's going to be something new, which is what I would. If it's new, as long as it's interesting.
I think it could involve established races, but if it's like in a new way, we haven't really seen.
Yeah,
like what they're doing with like the Andorians,
right?
And Orions, yeah.
The Orions.
Oh God!
I watched that episode recently, and I was like, "Oh!" I cringed every single time they said the Orions.
If you don't know what anyone watching, if you don't know what we're talking about, there's the original, animated series from the 70s, animated show with the Pirates of Orion. But in that episode, everyone kept referring to Orions as Orions. Like, why? What's going on?
The thing that occurred to me was that maybe the people who wrote that aren't the same people who wrote the original series and only saw Orion written down and never actually heard it pronounced and just thought it was pronounced Orion.
Yeah, I think there was some sort of speech coach or someone who was, directing the voice acting who just made that decision. They should all say Orion. I don't know who's responsible for that.
Yeah. But then Discovery, there are the Orions. As they yeah, I was thinking about that too. Like, it could be a different take on a previous race. I would still prefer not to be the Klingons because I'm so sick of the Klingons. But
yeah, I kind of agree with you there. But I actually think, I agree, but I think the Borg would be worse personally.
I do too. No, I know. So my top 3 least wanted series: Michael Burnham or anybody related to Michael Burnham, relatives, anything remotely related to Michael Burnham. Number 1. Number 2, Borg. Number 3, Klingons. Although Klingons, they could do in a way that would be okay with me, but I'd still.
They would have to be more careful about it.
Yeah.
They would have to do something new or inventive or.
Yeah.
And I actually don't want to see the fucking Klingons on Discovery again.
Me neither.
Unless they change the makeup.
No, Mark, no, it could be the Ferengi.
Oh my God. No. All right, that's worse than the Klingons. Oh God. I wonder if they could bring back an Enterprise villain like the Suliban.
The Suliban? They were. Yeah, weren't the Suliban from the future?
No, the Suliban was in contact with.
Oh, right. Okay, the Suliban. Yeah. Okay, that's right. You're right. Yeah, it could be the Suliban. I think it should be somebody different.
Hey, maybe Discovery will finally answer who the hell Future Guy was.
Yeah. It was Future Guy.
I think they said Future Guy was actually from an earlier century, like the 28th or 29th, if I recall my Enterprise lore.
Maybe Future Guy calls the bell. And tying it all back together again. Tying it all together.
Actually, I've heard people question why they refer to the Temporal Wars and not the Temporal Cold Wars, and they were like, "Is he theorizing?" But I was like, "No, it's explained the Enterprise itself because the Cold War turned hot, in season 4. So of course they're going to call it the Temporal War, not the Temporal Cold War, because they're going to care more about the actual war than the Cold War that led up to it."
Exactly. Yeah, that is exactly correct.
And I don't think we're going to get any more explanation because Enterprise itself, I think didn't really understand how that worked because they couldn't figure it out. So that's why they were always so damn vague about it. And so I think Discovery had to at least acknowledge it, but they're never going to go into any
Yeah.
detail because nobody really knows how that fucking works at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to bring this up. This is a nitpick that I have of the season. Like, I think there's really no way around this if they're going to have it in the 32nd century, but how they're like, oh, time travel is illegal now. Who's enforcing that? There's no federation. Like, if you have time travel technology, who's going to stop you from traveling back in time? Nobody. Like, it's just kind of, they've established it's sort of like a, it's a Wild West frontier, and like,
Yeah.
It's like, who would, if you were to acquire time travel technology, who's going to stop you from illegally traveling back in time? Nobody. But they just had to like put that in there to like explain why.
Yeah, it's a plot convenience thing.
Yeah.
To be like, we're not going to do time travel anymore. It's not going to happen. And we have to, the people are iffy about time travelers or whatever. So we have to pretend they're not time travelers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's two different concepts that fight against each other. You can't really have it both ways. You have a Wild West where there's no authority and there's lawlessness everywhere, but now there's an agreed upon law that time travel is outlaw. I thought it was lawless. How can there be agreed upon law? Like,
yeah. But they're kind of stuck in that. They had to explain it somehow because of Enterprise having established the temporal war and all that. So they had to like go, oh yeah, well, time travel is illegal now. Like they had to come up with something. But so they had really no choice. But still, I'm going to complain about it because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but it does reassure me that they're not going to resolve any issues through time travel. Like, Burnham's not going to travel back in time and stop the burn from happening and then change all the events we're seeing now.
No,
yeah, but them by like staying away from time travel reassures me that they're not going to do that.
Yeah, that would be another thing I really would not like. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. They are definitely staying away from that as well.
And it's sort of going to set the where we are now is where we're going to go here forward. And it does seem a bit sort of disconnecting that all the aliens are different and totally different. But it's interesting. It's just maybe a bit disconnected, but I suppose I'll get used to it the more the show goes on.
Yeah. Well, as I said in the beginning, I like that we can now like re-explore old alien races, or even re-explore Earth in that previous episode, and we can go back to Vulcan and it's new and fresh now. So I'm okay. I'm okay with it. And then yes, as the season goes forward, and I assume we're staying in this time period, in the next season, we'll learn more and more about the different races and where they are in that time period, and we'll get used to it.
All right, so Cardinal Doomsday says, are you sure about the time travel thing, Mark? I'm not. Well, I'm not. I'm sure as I can be. Like, I'm not 100, of course, but everything the show's implying is that they're staying away from time travel and not going to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it would seem like a sudden left turn to all of a sudden go into time travel when they've really established that time travel is not a thing.
And it has, as we said earlier, if they did, and that's how they resolved the burn, like they travel back in time and stop the burn, that would be terrible.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they won't do that. But,
and I'm not getting the sense that that's where they're heading at all. That's not where I'm getting.
Honestly, the theory you brought up about Burnham being responsible for the burn, I think that's a much more like bigger threat of happening. Like, I'm more worried they're going to do that because that would be in line with what they did before, which is part of the reason why it would suck. Yeah. Because they're doing it too much. They need to change things up.
Yeah, they need to show me that they've learned and gotten a little bit better. Otherwise, it's the same old crap. If they do that again, then I would be even more upset than I was with the Red Angel thing because I'm like, oh, come on, guys. Like, you should know better than that. By now, it's the third season. Get your act together. Come on. So they need to be a lot more creative than that. Some of the theories we talked about tying into Picard would be good. Introducing a whole new alien race would be good. I would love it if it's somehow related to Dominion, but I think there's like 0% chance, maybe 1%.
Yeah.
Maybe 1% chance, but I don't. I can't see them.
See, I would take the Dominion over the Suliban,
though. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, no, I think it's more likely it's going to be like a new thing,
which, as long as the new thing is interesting, that's what I want. I want it to be interesting. I don't want it to be, and I want it to be fresh. I want it to be creative. I don't want it to be the same old crap. So
I think actually it's probably more likely that they would tie it into the weird AI thing from Picard.
Yeah, I think that's on the table. I think that's a possibility. And I think they could do it in a way where I wouldn't love it, but I also think they could do it in a way that would be really good, depending on how they did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, we're not really talking about any theories we have. We're just talking about theories that we hope isn't the case. Because, to be honest, I don't have any theories.
I don't have any specific theory. Yeah. I mean, we have kind of talked about a theory. We've developed one here, talking about the AI thing with Picard.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
We've talked about the Dominion. We've kind of thrown out silly things like the Ferengi, Suliban, and this is sort of random, but did you notice? Because I did not notice this, but I read about it. I think it was last week's the episode where they had all the captains gathering around. Was that last week's episode? I didn't notice this, but apparently there was a Cardassian captain. Did you catch that?
I was exactly going to bring that up. And I would say the exact same thing. I did not notice it, but I read an article that pointed out that there was a Cardassian at the end Starfleet.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Like, let's hear more. I don't think the Cardassians are responsible for the part either, but let's hear a little bit more about the
Cardassians. I don't know. To me, it would be interesting if they did something like really, if the Borg maybe did appear, but they were like not a threat anymore, and there was something very weird about them.
I feel like Picard has covered the Borg pretty well. Like, I just don't. Yeah. I don't want to see the Borg at all, quite frankly. But yeah. Voyager pretty much killed the Borg, and Picard, the way that Picard did it, well, I didn't hate it. Like they tried to do something different with it. It was fine, but I don't need to see the Borg in Discovery.
Yeah. All right, so Paul DeReason said Q calls the burn. No, that would not be a good answer. I wouldn't be very satisfied with that one.
Or maybe this is the Lower Decks tie-in somehow. Boimler. Travel into the future gently, with his edicts, or Mariner. No, it would more likely be Mariner. Somehow calls the bird.
Now I can see it being Boimler. Oh god. Well, I do hope it's interesting, whatever they are, because that's the thing about the Red Angel reveal is that I don't think it was all that interesting.
Yeah.
And I already talked about how I think the through storyline this season about what calls the burn and learning about all these new aliens, that's a lot more interesting to me than the through storyline in season 2 about the Red Angel. And they did seem to sort of drag and hesitate, like they took 6 or 7 fucking episodes just to find Spock. So the pacing this season is better than season 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and ultimately it's hard to say what how much better the pacing is until the whole thing is played out. Because we can look back at it and be like, yeah, actually the pacing wasn't that great.
True. I don't know. I can pretty confidently say it's going to be, if the pacing is going to be at least better in season 2.
Better in season 2, yeah.
At least so far. I mean, they could totally fuck up the pacing going forward.
Yeah, but just generally speaking, what I want to see from the burn is that what they're building toward is setting up like the next big thing that's going to carry them forward into future seasons. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an enemy, and it'll almost be more interesting if it was just more like a problem that they now realize that they have to solve rather than a direct enemy. But either way, as long as it's something, and so I want it to be building toward, oh, there's this big reveal, there's this new thing now that uh, we have to deal with that's been secretly behind the scenes causing all of our problems.
All right, so I want to switch gears with theories here. I want to talk about Giorgio. Um,
Uh,
who's you're not very pleased with
no,
this.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I actually like Giorgio better than some other people do, but I don't understand why they brought her along to season 3, especially since they were supposed to do this stupid
Well,
Section 31 show. I don't know. I'll wait and see where they're going with this, but I don't. They could potentially do something interesting with it, but I don't know. Did you have any specific theories you wanted to talk about?
well, the thing with the Section 31 show is always in the back of my mind because they still say they're gonna do it, and they still say she's gonna be in it. So, and that's a show nobody wants.
Is it going to be Section 31 set in the 32nd century?
Yeah, I think they no, they I think they were very clear that it was going to be in the 23rd century. Like they said that what's his face? Ash Tyler was going to be in it.
And just, I'm scratching my head. I'm baffled.
So I'm wondering, like, I saw like the previews for next week's episode that shows Georgia Ellis like kind of phasing out me, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they're gonna say that she somehow is like maybe that David Cronenberg did something to her or something. I don't know, where she's gonna just phase back into the 23rd century.
Oh, yeah. Actually, where I thought you were going with this, and like the thought that occurred to me, is that they're going to try to say that this isn't the real Giorgio.
Oh God, that would suck.
Yeah, that this is actually a hologram of the somehow created by Control or something. Yeah, that would suck, but I wouldn't necessarily stop them from doing it. I like your idea better, that she would phase back into the 23rd century. But the idea that I would like the best is if they just keep her there and don't do the Section 31 show. Nobody wants that show.
Yeah, nobody wants that show. Like I hated Section 31. To me, it was the worst aspect, one of the worst aspects of season 2.
I mean, it's a Star Trek show, so I'll watch it, but I don't want it.
I mean, it seems like there's. I mean, they're doing that Nickelodeon show Prodigy with Janeway. They're talking about doing a Cisco show. They're doing the Strange New Worlds.
First I heard Cisco show, then I heard they're just doing a full-on Deep Space Nine reboot.
Well, I've heard after that the rumors about, again, these are all articles, so it'll be shit, but I heard that the rumors about the full-on Deep Space Nine reboot was incorrect, that they just wanted to bring back
That's what I'm bringing back.
Avery Brooks, but Avery Brooks apparently said he refused to come back unless they brought Jake back as well.
Yeah.
And, well, that's the article I read. It all could be bullshit, though. But it does sound like something he would say. Like, Avery Brooks himself was most, like, proud of the relationship between Cisco and Jake. So, because I wonder, like, if they just did a Cisco show, they could have it, like, where he's, like, a prophet and traveling to all these different time periods or whatever and do something really weird like that. But I guess I'm getting off topic. Anyway, so Paul D. Reason, we already talked about the com badges. I don't think they're a bit too much. I think they make perfect. So they're in the 32nd century, for fuck's sake. Like, of course they're going to have something that's really complex and can do everything.
I mean, yeah, I'm almost thinking that, like, I mean, it's 900 years in the future. Like, it's almost not enough technological advancement for me. So.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Like, the only reason I'm willing to forgive that the technology hasn't advanced even more is because of the burn.
Yeah.
Like, I'm willing to forgive, but if it wasn't for the burn, they should be way more advanced
than
what they are. Even the com badges or the matter or whatnot. Like, it's 1,000 years. Like, from the original series, Next Generation is only 100 years. And they've advanced a shitload. But that's why I think maybe going 1,000 years was a bit too much, but it does, as I said, it allows them to sort of change the situation. And they did have to set it after the whole temporal Cold War thingy because that's already established canon. So if they said it before, then they would fuck with things.
Yeah.
But anyway, can we talk about Tilly becoming the first officer?
Well, I will tell you what. Like, it sounded like from your review that it hadn't occurred to you, and I had heard the theory that it could be Tilly, and I heard talk that it could be Tilly, so I was a little more prepared for the possibility mentally. And in some ways I kind of see why they did it, because they got to have a main character. And they tried to smooth it over by being like, oh, well, these are extraordinary circumstances, kind of like Voyager putting Maquis members as part of the crew, even though that's not typical Starfleet, because these are extraordinary circumstances. And then they also tried to like smooth it over. Oh, you're not the real first officer, you're the acting first officer. But why? Why do you need an acting first officer? Just choose a first officer. Like, whoever you want to be your permanent first officer, choose them now. Like, why? If the whole thing is just so you can have one of the main characters be a first officer.
Exactly. That's it. That's all there is to it. Like, I'm sorry, but this does remind me of the whole Kirk going from cadet.
It's not as bad as that.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Very few things are as bad as that. But it reminds me way too much of it. Like, it is just a plot convenience. But like, in universe, she's not fucking prepared to do the job. She would be shit at the job. She's not confident. She's not good at commanding other people. Like any one of those other, random people who don't have much dialogue would do a much better job.
Well, he even left Lieutenant, I think she's Lieutenant Commander, or Nelson, the chick who's played by the original Ariam actress. Like, he's left her in charge a couple times. Even if she doesn't have any lines, she makes more sense. Like, she's done the job before. Like, she's been in charge of the bridge before. It would make way more sense for her to do it. And I just don't understand this whole concept of, oh, we're going to just call you a acting first officer to try to make it make more sense.
You're still an ensign. You still rank below everyone, but you're going to be their commander in charge of them.
Why just go get a freaking first officer? Like, why do you need a first officer? Just name somebody the full-time first officer. That's stupid. It's really dumb. So I am not a fan. I'm not a fan of this. I was a little more mentally prepared for it because I heard about the possibility, and I was like, "Oh God, I hope they don't do that." Oh, they're probably gonna do that. They're probably gonna do that.
Colonel Doomsday said Detmer. Now Detmer would not be a good choice because she's like got her own issues this season. And what did they kind of just move past that now? I think they might have.
Yeah, I think that's like, that's enough of that. She's fine. She's
I don't
fine.
think but if that's the case, I don't think they went enough into it because I didn't really buy her freakouts. Like, I don't know. Like, I buy she could have PTSD, but I don't buy how it was executed on the show.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I personally wanted to see more of these minor characters and have them explored a bit more. Like, I kind of get they don't need to be, like, because you had the original series, like Sulu and Horror and all them weren't really developed much until, like, at least the movies or the animated series. But I think it would be better if they did. Like, I would personally like it better because we're not always focused on fucking Tilly for everything. And I don't know. I think Stamets would make more sense as a first officer. I mean, freaking Tucker was the second officer and he was a chief engineer or whatever.
Yeah, but it's not just that he's the chief engineer. It's that he has to like run the thing, and then it makes him like weak afterward, and like it would be hard to make Stamets the first officer.
Yeah, well, I still think it makes more sense than Tilly. That's just me.
Yeah. It is 100% like she's a main character, so she needs to be first officer. It makes no sense in universe at all.
Yeah. I hope that they're like leading to an arc where Burnham becomes the first officer again.
I don't know. I don't know where they're going with Burnham.
Hmm.
It almost seems like it would make more sense if she decided to go off with Book and leave Discovery, but then they couldn't do that because then she wouldn't be on Discovery anymore.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like the resolution, the very clunky and on the nose resolution this past episode was her realizing that her place is on Discovery.
Yeah, but I still feel like I don't know if I buy that. Like I don't know that that's really resolved. Like I think that she still doesn't really want to be on Discovery, but
I think so. But I think she's just finding a new, like trying to reassimilate back into
yeah.
the way of things.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, I don't know if I would buy her being named first officer again because
I'd be fine with it.
I don't know. As you pointed out in your last week's review, or I think you did, like that she. I mean, how many freaking times does she have to, like, this is what she does? Or maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was a different review I listened to.
Okay.
But somebody was pointing out, like, I mean, duh. This is what Burnham does. Like the battle of the binary stars. Like this is her pattern. Like what? I don't know why like Saru would make her first officer again after she's already proven that she does the same things over and over again. That she's always gonna be defiant, always gonna defy orders. I don't think I would buy if she was first officer again.
I don't know. I think they're definitely for me personally. I think they're setting the stage for her character growth to move beyond that and become more in line.
I hope so, but I just don't know that Saru. Why would Saru be convinced, even if it was true?
Well, this is what I'm thinking. If they have a character arc for her where she earns the right to be the first officer, rather than in this season that he was like, "Oh, you're my first officer," and of course she doesn't fit and fucks up, so she has to like have growth and go through a thing and then earn the right. Like if did it that way, I'd be okay with it. If they did it like the next episode. Okay, Burnham, you can be the first officer now. Then no, it needs to be something that's like earned.
I don't know how she would earn it in Saru's eyes, though, because Saru has already felt like he's been, forgive the pun, burned by her several times. And like, fool me once, shame on me, that whole saying, or fool me once, shame on you. Like, I think it would take a lot for Saru to trust her again with that. Even if we, the audience, see that, oh, she's grown and she's got character growth, I don't buy that Saru would see that. Like, why wouldn't
I could buy that.
I can't at all. Like, why would he trust her again to be first officer after she keeps burning
if he saw her growth, if he saw her character?
But why would he trust that it's real growth and not just another? Oh, because he said in the last week's episode he thought that she had grown before, and then he was like, "Oh, I was wrong. You haven't really changed." So why would he trust that she's changed now? He's already been fooled by that.
I just think there's possible. I think there's a way she can earn it.
I don't think so. I think that she'll end up as first officer again because she's a new character.
But I think it would make more sense for the show. I mean, they better not fucking keep Tilly as the first officer. That's all I'm saying. It needs to be someone else. Burnham's the only possible one because all the other characters are too minor, and as you said, it can't be Stamets. So that's what I'm saying. That's why.
Well, but that still doesn't make any sense, though. I still don't buy it. I mean, yeah, from a meta perspective, it makes sense because she's a main character. But you can say the same thing about Tilly. Oh, she's a main character, but otherwise,
there could be a way eventually that would make sense. Like, I mean, now you wouldn't buy it.
Not this season, in my opinion. Wow. Maybe in a couple years, Saru could finally build up the trust again in her. But I don't know why he would.
I disagree. Her. I think Saru constantly changes his mind about shit. He's that good of a captain, to be honest.
But she's already burned him on that. He already thought that she had grown, and then realized she didn't.
Anyway, we're just gonna have to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
She emotes more if that counts as change. I don't think so, Colonel Doomsday. Um, yes. What else? Hmm. Okay. So username I can't properly pronounce. I'm not going to try. Says, wouldn't it be plausible if someone from the future Federation Starfleet would be added as a new crew member and maybe not, or yeah, maybe a new like a future person could be the first officer. Like, I'd be better with that than Tilly.
Well, that was actually what I was rooting for, is for them to make that one. Even though they called her a security officer or whatever, that one lady who's been in a couple
Yeah.
episodes, even though she was lieutenant, they could advance her to lieutenant commander and make her, because lieutenant commanders can be first officer. Um,
Yeah.
I believe Cisco was a lieutenant commander when he was a first officer of the
Yes.
Saratoga, so
Yes.
it's possible. So I thought maybe she could be the first officer. That's what I was actually rooting for. Um, then I heard about the possibility of Tilly, and I'm like, oh my god, that's what they're gonna do. but I always what I wanted was to see that chick become the
Hey,
first officer.
maybe it will be Adira.
I think if there's one person on the show that would be even worse than Tilly, would be Adira.
Really? No, I don't think there's any.
She's not even an officer.
But no one can be worse than Tilly, though.
But at least Tilly is in Starfleet. You can't make somebody who's not even in Starfleet the first officer.
I suppose. I mean, she could join.
You know who we haven't mentioned, who also like rank wise, the one of the, I think she might be the high. No, actually, she's lieutenant commander. But what's her phrase? Why am I forgetting her name?
Are you talking about Jet Reno?
Jet Reno, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think she has the real. I don't think she would necessarily make a good first officer, but she's her rank. I think she's lieutenant commander.
Yeah.
Like,
she's
it would
more
make
of an engineer too, but she would be a better choice than Tilly.
Yeah, it would make more sense. Yeah.
Linus, yes, Colonel Doomsday has it. Linus should be the first officer. There we go. Actually, I'm starting to really like Linus.
I like Linus's comic relief. Like, yeah. I like how he was transporting. In those personal transporters, that makes a lot of sense that they would have that technology. I think they should. But yes. I do wonder about the logistics about, like, how come not everybody, like, how does
well, I wonder how Linus kept going in the wrong place. How did he not end up like floating in space or something? I could buy that they have like a safeguard to like keep it in an atmosphere,
yeah,
or whatever, and not rematerialize in a wall or some shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Paul DeReason brought up the personal transporters before and how that's like outrageous, but honestly, it feels like they were getting close to that in the 24th century. It feels like we're almost there anyway, like in TNG times and Voyager times particularly.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's actually that big of a leap, honestly. And I think they better fucking have it by the 32nd century. Otherwise, I wouldn't buy it. Personally.
Yeah.
Just me.
Yeah, and almost by Picard times, they should have it by then. So, I mean, it was like... that's probably an invention from the 25th century, quite frankly, like after Picard, because you're right, because they were pretty close to it.
So Colonel Doomsday says, I just wish Linus did something more than comic relief. I don't know if I could ever see Linus being more than comic relief. I mean, I think sometimes he's good as a way to show the crew interacting with each other and being social, but I don't know if I would buy like a serious dramatic episode centered on Linus. Like, I don't know.
That would be a hard sell. That would be a hard sell. I think if they did an episode centered around Linus, it would end up being similar to the one they did on Deep Space Nine, centered around Morn, where it's just Like a silly episode.
Yeah, like a silly, like yeah. If they did a Linus-centric episode, it had to be like at least lighthearted and
Yeah.
not right comedic. Uh, which I'd be fine with, by the way. I do like the way they use them for comic relief. I think it does really work. All right. I don't know. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about this season so far before we go ahead and end the discussion?
No, not really. My main reason for wanting to do this is just to talk about how I don't want Michael Burnham to be responsible for the burn. But so yeah, we've talked about a lot of stuff. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Cool. So yeah, so we will definitely meet at the end of the season, talk about how we felt about the season overall. So I know you are not up to much nowadays, but Alyssa, if you just want to thank you so much for coming. If you want to just give a quick shout out, maybe to stuff you've done in the past, or maybe future plans we don't know about. But
now my future plans right now are to join you for some Expanse discussions coming up in the future, and we'll probably do an end of the season Discovery discussion, I'm sure. But as far as my own stuff, I don't really have anything coming down the line right now. But I will be back on Mark's channel occasionally.
oh, I was worried about my volume being too low. Sorry about
Uh-oh.
that. Cardinal Doomsday. Last time I did a live stream with Darren on his channel, my volume was way too fucking high, and I went back and I watched it, and I was like much louder than everyone, so I turned my volume down a bit, but I guess I turned it down too much. I'll have to try to.
I don't know. That's weird because to me, you sound great. Like your volume doesn't sound low at all to me.
Oh, that's right. Colonel Doomsday really wanted to ask you, Alyssa, if you've seen any new episodes of His Dark Materials.
Any new episodes?
Oh, I take that as a no.
What the season 2's out?
Yeah, I think so. That's what Colonel Doomsday says.
I haven't heard anything about that. I mean, I don't currently have HBO or HBO Max, but I had no idea that they were making it. The second season was out already.
I remember hearing about it. Like I saw a trailer for it.
Oh,
I didn't.
I had I had no idea.
Okay, so that answers that question. I don't even know if I'm interested in watching.
Yeah, I currently don't have HBO.
It started according to IMDb. It started November 16th. Was the first episode of the second season.
Oh, I had no clue.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I'll eventually check it out. I got a lot of disagreement on my channel when I talked about this, but I really did not like how they threw elements of the future books into the first season, and because it just didn't fit. And they made it too.
Really? You got disagreement on that? I thought most people.
Yeah, no. When I said that on my channel, my Acton Tompkins channel, like I get tons of people arguing with me on that.
Weird. Because I've heard a lot of people say the same thing that read the book, saying that they shouldn't have introduced that whole plot with the R universe or whatever.
Yeah, I made it too complicated. So it kind of turned me off on the show a little bit. But yeah, I'll probably eventually watch it. Next time I get HBO Max, maybe.
I mean, I gotta be honest, like because I never read the books, the first season didn't really grab me. Like I kept waiting for it to like grab me, but I never really got into it. Which makes me think it's not. Since I hear the books are really great, so it makes me think it's not a very good adaptation.
Yeah, it's a lot better than the crappy movie.
Well, yeah, that is a low bar. Oh god! All right, well. Anyway, yeah, we're talking His Dark Materials. I'll go ahead and wrap this up. Finding me for the first time, my name is Mark. I'm a Channel's Enchantment of Eternity. I cover Star Trek Discovery every week, and as we mentioned, we'll be back here again at the end of the season to do another season wrap up. And also, I will be covering The Expanse, one of my favorite shows. I'll be doing live discussion videos every week with Darren from D's Reviews. I believe he's going to join me every week, and I have a various guests each different week. And also, of course, I'll do my own reviews of The Expanse. And I continue to do a lot of back catalog Star Trek stuff. I'm also covering Breaking Bad at the moment and just busy doing way too much. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining. Any parting words, Alyssa, or anything else you want to say about Discovery? No, all good. All right.
No, thanks for having me, Mark, and I look forward to some Expanse discussions and Discovery end of season discussion. Hopefully, we're not talking about how pissed off we are that Michael Burnham was responsible for the.
Oh my god. Let's hope not. If so, I imagine our discussion would be somewhat in the same vein as our Game of Thrones season 8 discussion.
Not that bad. Unless Michael Burnham, Michael Burnham deliberately calls the burn and killed millions of innocent people in doing so because she's evil now.
I would say that would still be better than Game of Thrones season. Anyway, okay. So yeah, good to see you guys, and we'll see you next time.